You're listening to the Fan2Fan Podcast, and on this episode, we're talking to Joseph Scrimshaw, writer, comedian, and director of the feature film Dead Media. If you're a fan of horror, physical media, nostalgia, and all things geek, you won't want to miss this. Here we go. Welcome back to the Fan2Fan Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Bernie Gonzalez. With me, as always, fellow co-host Pete Charbonneau. But Pete, we are not alone. We're talking to Joseph Scrimshaw, folks. Writer, comedian, all geek flavored. You've written for Adult Swim animated series Tigtone, written a few jokes for Riff Tracks. You've performed stand-up, written plays, hosted podcasts, produced several award-winning shorts. And one of the points of the conversation, we're going to be talking about your feature film, Dead Media. And so you don't have to do the pitch, Joseph, because we're going to dig into the movie. I'm going to give folks the 2-sentence description of the movie. And I did it courtesy of your home, Twin Cities. So I'm going to give a nod to Twin Cities Geek that described the movie as the story of a troubled young woman, her lonely Gen X uncle, a haunted DVD, a movie night that won't die. Dead Media is an exciting homage to great horror cult classics and the bygone era of DVD bonus features. That is exactly right.
Have I ever told you this movie's cursed?
So, Pete, you had a chance to check out the film.
I did, yeah. That's kind of how Joseph got on our radar. I was attending the Nevermore Film Festival in Durham, and I had a choice to pick a couple of films because I wasn't going to be there to catch everything. I was looking at the program, saw Dead Media, it's about physical media, DVDs. Bernie and I have waxed poetic many times on the podcast about our trips to the video store growing up and all of that entails. So that right off the bat kind of just grabbed me. So I was really pleased and privileged to get a chance to see Dead Media at the Nevermore Film Festival. Really, really enjoyed it. Joseph was there on hand to do some questions afterwards, which was great. And so I was like, he seems like he's like the type of guy that we would want to have on the podcast and we would have a good conversation with. So fingers crossed, we'll see if that happens. But really excited to have you here, Joseph, and to talk about Dead Media and all things about, your creative approach and basically how you got this feature film into the world.
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled to be here, and thank you so much for reaching out after seeing the film, and you're very kind to, because you reached out right after Nevermore in February, and I was like, I would love to when I am ready to promote the film a little bit more. So thank you so much for your patience.
I think we're going to get into the fact that you are about to embark on a month-long roadshow to promote Dead Media, and then a month wrapping up in your hometown of Minneapolis, where I think you originally debuted the film in October of this past year.
Yeah. We had a premiere in Minneapolis. That was the first screening anywhere in October of 2025. Submitted to a couple festivals. And then when I was advertising that it was going to be at Nevermore, this new distribution company, Antenna Releasing, reached out and was like, hey, we're looking for films. Can we see that? And like, sure. So being in Nevermore is what got me on Antenna Releasing's radar. And they're trying to do better by indie films by having these road shows before the films go to streaming or in physical media. But in particular, the going to streaming, I think even when a film is great and the internet is like on fire for a weekend of like, great, this great new movie landed on streaming. And then it just sort of goes away from the conversation. And I think Antenna Releasing is really interested in getting people to theaters and getting films to be an event and a reason to leave the house. And that's the plan with the road show is to make it a whole event with an intro and Q&A moderated by different people. And I'm going to do a DVD giveaway at every screening and make it an event.
Are you prepped? Are you like mentally ready for this roadshow? That's a month of the road. I know you have done stand-up comedy. I don't know how much travel you've had to do with that because you're out in LA now, correct?
Yeah. I need to get like my laundry ready, but my body and my soul are ready. I'm very excited for it because I did theater in comedy for years and years, and I absolutely love it. And there's nothing like live performance because it is ephemeral. It's just that what happens that night between you and that audience. That's what I love about it. But that's also kind of the curse of it. Of these wonderful things happen and then they're gone, and that's what made me really go like, I want to make some films so that those things last. So I'm so thrilled for the roadshow because it's both. It's celebrating the film, which is locked and exists and will exist after I'm not on this planet. But then doing the roadshow, it's also like getting back to doing more live shows because I'm there that night with that audience and get to do an intro and a Q&A and have fun, and a great mix of live and the locked nature, the forever nature of film.
I have to imagine that getting that instant feedback from a crowd too is super helpful because you're not reading something on the internet about someone that watched it at a certain point. Like, you're getting immediate visceral reaction from a crowd that has just taken in your movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't think there's anything wrong with streaming, but I think it's like it should be a healthy diet. It shouldn't be the only thing, the only way we eat films, because it is so much. It's nice to build a film for an audience, for a group of people. When people see a film online, you kind of never know, like, did you make a night of it? Did you like make your favorite dinner and sit down with someone you love? Or were you like, I'm half doing laundry, I'm half checking out this film? Like, you don't know kind of how people are watching it. And that's hard when you've built it to be like, this is for an audience to enjoy.
I have to imagine too, as you're working on the film, obviously you've got a lot of collaborators, folks that you're working with, checking out a lot of your short films. Your name is all over it beyond just obviously writing or directing it. Like, you're not afraid of sound design. We'll get back to that. But as you're making these things, you're kind of like on an island doing this. And then, like you said, you kind of lock the film, and now your baby's out there shown to people. In the times that you've shown dead media to a crowd, has it kind of changed your relationship to this film that kind of like friends and family were exposed to, and you could get feedback from them at a showing in your living room? Or, hey, I'm going to dump the MP4 in a Dropbox. Can you just check this out real quick and give me your feedback? Now you're in a room full of strangers that, for the most part, you figure they're there to hopefully enjoy something new, something independent, and they have a bit of an open aperture to that. But then does that kind of change your relationship with the film that you've kind of been on an island with for some time?
Yeah. In particular, that the first screening that we did in Minneapolis, I showed the film, like you're saying, to some friends and collaborators. But it can be really hard to step back and see it again. It's the forest versus the trees. In making the film, you're just spending all this time trying to make every tree perfect. Especially as you get down to it, you're like, that one damn tree. Try to fix that tree. Somebody sees it again, and it's a forest again. And when I was sitting there with the audience in the Minneapolis premiere, it was like really moving. Not just like, oh, are they reacting? Do they like it? But it was like they gave me the movie back to me. I could see it as a forest again. I could see it as a story again. And that was really an amazing experience, and very fascinating to see what happens to it in my eyes as I see it with lots of different audiences all over the country.
Thank God you're here. They're tearing up the place.
Come on. Come on. I've never been to a movie premiere before.
And there's something about that communal movie theater experience. And I think that kind of goes back to your comment. A movie's kind of put out to streaming, and you, again, from the perspective of the filmmaker, don't know how the person is consuming it. I made this thing. I don't know if you're folding laundry while you're watching this thing that I passionately created, but you watch it however you watch it, right? And the fact that your film is called Dead Media, I harken back to like William Castle and the folks that like made movie going an event. And I would hope that movie watching experience isn't also dead media, that it's not something that disappears. And it seems like you're kind of leaning into the like, no, there's an analog nature to a roadshow, to doing a Q&A with folks and kind of watching it all together and talking about it. Because if not, you would be in your living room on your own. And maybe if I got a reaction out of you, you text your buddy, you write a letterbox review, but that may be it. You get to see the faces of the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it is so much about like art can do many things, but I think one of the things that it can do is build community and connection and empathy. And I think a lot of the things that we're talking about with like, there's a million reasons I love physical media, but I think part of that video store love and nostalgia that a lot of us have is it's the community. Like, even if you don't talk to a single person at the video store, there are other people like you, different from you, who are looking for different kind of movies. You have the conversation with the person at the store, who's renting it. Maybe they're snide about what you pick. Maybe they're complimentary about what you pick. So much of it is just about community. And I think with a roadshow and a screening on like streaming, it is, you're interacting with people, and everybody there is interacting with people.
Anybody who was anybody knows Video Biz is the place to go for the latest movie releases. Let Video Biz spirit you away to another world with one of the largest selections of movies in the Metroplex, and our service is so good it's scary. So for something to entertain your waking hours, or for those who never rest, come to Video Biz. To go anywhere else would be a grave mistake.
Not to get us too sidetracked off of the film, but since you're bringing up like that, the whole video store experience, we've done a couple of episodes talking about, our journeys to video stores and adventures there. Did you have a local one that was kind of, maybe not a blockbuster, that was like more of a mom and pop thing that you kind of gravitated towards, that maybe in some way has helped inform Dead Media down the road?
We call this section, Joseph, the Beyond the Beaded Curtain with Joseph Scrimshaw.
That's hilarious. But there used to be in Minneapolis and St. Paul a great bookstore, magazine store, comic book store called Schindler's. And there was one downtown, and it had a beaded curtain for the adult magazines. And there was one time I got shoved out of the way rudely by people going into the beaded curtain. I was like, well, that was rude. And I looked it up. I was like, that was very rude of you, Roseanne Barr and Tom Arnold, who pushed me out of the way to get to the beaded curtain, and then realized she was there doing a show. My most formative memory really is like my parents didn't have a lot of money, and they were just kind of weird and slow to adopt things. So we didn't have a VCR growing up in the 80s like when everyone else did. And eventually my brother got mad and was just like, one day he was like, I'm going to walk down to the Dairy Queen down the street and get a job so I can buy a VCR like normal human beings. So we didn't get a VCR until I was maybe like 16. And then we went to kind of a sketchy local video store, and it was like the world opened up to us and we could see all of these movies that we hadn't seen before. And that was a great time.
Come on, pick up. I thought the kids were always on their damn smartphones these days. Come on. Maggie, it's old Uncle Heppy. Yeah, cancel your plans. I'm coming over. No. Listen, I found it. The holy grail of physical media, Night of the Lurchers. Yeah, best movie in 1999, and that's saying something. 99 was the best year for film. Hell, the best year, period. God. Rocking down Lindale Avenue in my cobalt blue Ford Fairmont, tank full of 99-cent gas, blasting Brian Setzer Orchestra.
Again, give credit to Twin Cities Geek, because they said Dead Media is a horror love letter to physical media, obsessive collectors, and ghosts lurking inside our outdated technologies. It seems like, Joseph, you had like this relationship with analog technology.
Don't fucking kill me! I deserve to leave like fuck. Hi, I'm Katie Mason. I'm 5'7", 127 pounds, and I'm reading for the role of Victim 7 in What's Bobby Doing in the Basement?
Victim 7, which is a short film that you have where an actress is doing her audition tape, and without spoiling the short, obviously there's a component in it that very much involves an analog device. Through Dead Media and Pete, you having seen it, but seeing the trailer myself, seeing reviews and folks kind of talking about it, it seems like you very much lean into the idea of the horror movie through the lens of like a haunted DVD.
What? Oh, yeah, the movie. It's about these monsters called lurchers, and they feed on the movement of the living. Like, if you try to run, you slow down, they speed up. It's so creepy. What? No, we can't watch it online. Because streaming fucking sucks. Look, I know your generation's been trained to worship high resolution until you think cinema's seeing every pore in George Clooney's dimpled ass cheeks, but you must appreciate the glory of an old school DVD. Its bonus features, Easter eggs, actual love burned into a physical object you can hold, and yes, you will not regret this, Max. This movie's gonna change your life.
Oh, this is kind of cool. The idea of like the DVD as like the totem, the thing. Dead Media is kind of leaning into people that very much have a nostalgia for some of that physical media-ness, and also like the comment that the character makes where he's like, that nostalgia for the old days. Why did you pick DVDs instead of VHS? Because I think VHS and horror have such a big relationship, so synonymous. Like you think of Full Moon, Wizard Video, Charles Band, all that stuff, it's VHS. And then, you know, the idea of, as a fellow Misty, like keep circulating the tapes. And then you're making a film now for a generation, for an audience that may not have the nostalgia for VHS. So you picked DVD.
Yeah, it's a couple layers of why I picked DVD. I mean, part of it was just the real explosion, especially into mainstream of the found footage VHS horror, was kind of happening around the same time that DVDs were the shiny, new, exciting thing.
This is DVD. And this is what happens when you watch DVD. It's a movie on a disc the size of a CD. The picture is twice as sharp as VHS. The sound is infinitely clearer. It looks and sounds like you're at the movies, but you can experience it at home. Not to mention, you can watch it in widescreen, listen to audio commentary, choose from features like director's notes, behind-the-scenes footage, trailers, and more.
And I remember thinking at the time, like going to Blair Witch Project and, you know, The Ring a couple of years later. And a lot of that horror of the VHS tapes was that they could be a corporate thing, or they could be something that some rando made in their basement. And there's that sort of, even with, you know, circulating the tapes, like, well, what's on the tapes? It's this secret. It's this knowledge we're passing between one another. And I remember in the time, you know, 99, 2000, could a DVD ever be scary? Because at the time it was so shiny and new and exciting, and it seems so far from what was creepy about VHS. And as time has gone on, I kind of feel like anything that gets older gets a little haunted as it becomes not the technology that we use. What it symbolizes becomes older. And I think for me, a lot of what DVDs symbolize is, because it was just sort of this new idea of like, hey, we got this technology and we can just dump all sorts of stuff on it. It wasn't too controlled. You know, we all have our favorite, like, hey, remember when this actor sat down and got drunk and said insane things that like a corporation would never allow that person to say? And they let some tech nerds who are, you know, engineering this just put random crap hidden in the menu. And I think some of what is, I think, kind of maybe creepy about DVDs now is that they were this repository of a sort of lost depth of knowledge and a lost depth of frankness and honesty that has been really clamped down in a much more controlled Hollywood. I was interested in a feeling that when you find an old DVD from back in the day, you kind of don't know what might be lurking in there. Even these days, when you get like an updated Blu-ray, I'll be like, I'm going to watch my old favorite of this interview and be like, this has been edited for content. And that wild thing they said is gone, you know? And I don't even mean offensive, just sometimes like George Lucas said a really weird thing and it's not on the Blu-ray, but it's back on the DVD. That is some of these sort of layers that I wanted to play with the DVD. Just honestly, my generation of that was the shiny new thing. And what's it like now to be at an age where you're having nostalgia for that thing that was so shiny and new, and it's not shiny and new anymore, and the sort of the ache and the pain of that.
Well, VHS was very one way. Video Zone was like the only thing I could ever think of where you would watch Doll Man, and then at the very end, you might get like a 10-minute behind the scenes.
Full Moon sprouts another horror classic. Seed People. Hot off the set of Dangerous Toys.
Did you see this movie?
Director Peter Manoogian shifts gears from toys to Seed People.
For you to do the transformation? You're gonna love this.
The DVD, there's discovery here, but now there's engagement. I can go around the menu, I can click on things, there's a commentary, and then people like Robert Rodriguez leaned into it with the film school concept. You know, from the kid who had the subscription to Entertainment Weekly, watch Entertainment Tonight, I'm like, gimme all this info. But there's something about the engagement, and that was very unique to DVDs.
Yeah, I think it makes people appreciate the film more and appreciate the work and the art behind it.
In talking about dead media as the film, Joseph, like you do lean into one of the aspects about DVDs, the idea of the Easter egg.
This may surprise you, but not all Easter eggs are edible or even egg-shaped. Our next guest, the author of DVD Confidential 2, Mark Saltzman, is here to show off some Easter eggs that you'll only find on DVD movies. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Now, kind of explain for us and the audience, what exactly is an Easter egg?
Sure. Well, a DVD Easter egg is a secret planted on that disc, and hundreds of today's movies have them. So the user has to take the DVD remote, press a certain combination of keys on the remote in order to unlock that Easter egg.
Now, these are intentionally put in. These aren't leftovers that they had when they created the movie.
Well, they may be. I mean, an Easter egg can be anything from an alternate ending to a film to a hidden interview with the filmmaker, a video game, but it's not listed on the back of the box.
So the key is it is hidden, so you've got to search for it like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
I think there's something to ideas feel real when they are solid and we can hold them in our hands, and I think our connection to them becomes stronger. And I started collecting action figures when I was very young, and then I like vinyl records, and I think some of that collector mentality is about loving things and kind of wanting them close to you. It's a good engagement with the film, but it's a different level of engagement if you're like, I own this DVD, I love this film, I want it to be part of my collection, and actually I want a t-shirt and I want a poster because I want this idea to be physically a part of my life and a part of like my identity. Some of the kind of connection between all the collecting stuff is really choosing the ideas in pop culture and art that help us tell ourselves who we are. That's part of what's been lost by the streaming is the focus is entirely on consume and report. And the focus isn't on how can I bring this into my life as much. Films and TV shows don't exist in the physical world for us to sort of collect them as much as they used to. And I think that's another thing I'm obsessed with.
I don't know if you were the same, Bernie and I grew up kind of similar, like kind of shy kids. I think the journey to embracing our own individuality and embracing our love of nerddom and nerdy things. Like I know for myself, like same thing. I had tons of Star Wars figures growing up, and then they reached the point where it felt like embarrassing because I wasn't cool with the cool kids in school, and so you almost like got to put this off to the side. But then you get older and you become comfortable with who you are, and it's like, no, I love all that shit. So I either have to go back and get it or at least embrace it. And I feel like the character of Uncle Happy in Dead Media, it kind of represents that in a way, because although you could look at him as being, well, this guy is kind of stuck in the past, and he is, but he also seems to have like a really good sense of himself and what he is about and what he likes. And that kind of comes through with the whole, like, I'm bringing over this DVD and we're going to watch it, and fuck stream. We're not watching on stream. And even though we watch it on streaming, it's like, I got it on DVD. This is how you're going to do it.
Yeah, and some of the idea kind of came from the whole, what if a DVD was haunted? How would that story work? And then the main character is a young girl who's having a hard time. She's feeling stuck in life in the way young people do, of just kind of afraid to take the first steps. I was really interested in playing with that idea because I love so much from the past. But then I have friends who love things from the past, but I have friends who are like, who can love things from the past and still engage with the real world, the current world. Not the real world really, but the current world. And then there's some other people who are like past only. And I think I wanted to play with some of those ideas.
And I think it's important to mention, because we've talked a lot about nostalgia, and to your point, like the character of Maggie, like there's a intergenerational thing going on here. So this isn't just something of like you're following one character. There's a couple of characters, and they have their challenges of, how do I move forward in life? And am I stuck? And is this what I want? Or, and then of course there's, all kinds of cosmic horror and bad things happening that they have to overcome.
It is gonna take you back to the old days. And once you get there, you might never come back.
That's the fun part of it, but the deeper part is like, this isn't just an older person's nostalgia trip. There's you've made that link to the younger generation too, so I think that it kind of it spans age groups to really enjoy this movie.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about that in our conversation here about the value of DVDs. I think it's natural. Anybody who you get older and you pine for what was the joyous thing that you had earlier in your life. But then I think, a thing like the DVDs, it's like, it's really thinking through, well, what is the value of that? And would that be valuable to younger folks? Like, does it have value because of the nostalgic connection, or can people actually like articulate to one another, here's the value? And I think that's why we are seeing like younger folks like Gen Z get into vinyl and get into DVDs, because I think their connection to vinyl is not about nostalgia, you know? That is entirely about, I think, everything we're talking about of like, we want to curate our lives. We want to curate our loves. If we love something, we don't just want to stream it. We want to have it in our hands. I think maybe that's maybe an important thing to me of like, how do you figure out, are you just being stuck in the past, or are you actually going back for an idea and we maybe threw out that we shouldn't have?
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned love. So would you say, Joseph, that you're a horror filmmaker who happens to be funny, or are you a comedy writer who loves horror? Because obviously Dead Media horror movie, you don't have to go too far in your YouTube channel to see a lot of horror shorts. So you obviously wear that on your sleeve, but you've got a lot of comedy, sketch comedy in your background too.
Yeah. So I started out doing comedy, and I absolutely love comedy and did it for years and years. But kind of my sort of break into doing more stuff is there's the Fringe Festival that goes on all over the world. It started in Edinburgh. There's a really big one in Minnesota, the Minnesota Fringe Festival, and the whole deal with it is it's non-juried. There are no gatekeepers. You pay your money, and if it's a smaller Fringe Festival, you just get in. If it's a bigger one, it's a lottery. Anybody just gets to put their work in front of the audience. And that's where I had a lot of success. And I wrote a lot of one-act plays that were like, they were comedies, but to me, it was always really important about like, no, but there are ideas here. I said it's a comedy, so I will try very hard to make you laugh. But kind of when I'm sitting there writing, I care about the characters and what they want and the thematic ideas of the piece. And I think this just came from all the things that I love. I feel like comedy is just a language. I feel like monsters are a language. And sometimes I don't care whether I'm speaking French or Spanish. I care most about what I'm saying, particularly with Dead Media. I really cared about the pain of feeling trapped in life, the ache of nostalgia, and just having a hard time with the fact that you can't go back. And that to me was what the movie was about. And then as I was writing it, is like, well, this is who the character is. This is this, old movie from 99 that didn't do well. Lots of comedy emerged. And like, even when I was done, it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of comedy in this. But I never sat down going, I'm going to write a horror comedy. And a lot of audiences are going to see it and go, it's a horror comedy because there's a lot of comedy in it. But to me, it's about the ideas, not the language in which they're said.
I don't know if you've thought much or at all about this, but it seems like there's a lot of people that have a background in comedy or having a little moment in horror right now. Is there a shorthand to, like, if you're crafting a joke or a sketch, workshopping it and trying to get it so that it, the punchline lands at a certain point, or like you're taking the pause at a certain point? Is there a shorthand there between that and if you're crafting a horror film where you need to build tension and you need the scare to land at a certain, is there something there that you can kind of draw off of from your experiences, or is it more, do you find it come more just natural?
I think a lot of the horror comedy connection is the timing, at least for like live comedy performance. Like I think a lot of what separates really great comedians from, fine comedians is that a really intuitive sense of the audience of like, how long do they need to process this idea before this thing lands? And it's maybe not even the same every night. And I think that same thing applies to horror of like, what is my gut instinct of the timing of this? I think on a maybe deeper level, I think the most satisfying comedy to me, to write or perform or hear, is when it's really cathartic, is when it's like, you don't understand this is where the joke is going, but when it lands, it's like, oh God, somebody expressed this thing, and laughing about it gives me relief. And I think like the most obvious example is like, when you're in pain and somebody makes a great joke about being depressed, right? And for a second, you have power over it. This thing is haunting you because you laughed at it and you're not alone. And so there's a thing in comedy of facing horrible crap and fighting against it by laughing at it. And horror is just literally being like, we're being real honest that the world is crappy. It's full of actual monsters, many of them allegories for like rich people or bad boyfriends or like all sorts of like real horrors in the real world. And then we're going to watch these traumatized people overcome it and survive it, So I think there's a real connection between comedy and horror. Both want to look at how awful the world can be, honestly, and then find some joy and some catharsis in overcoming it.
Hey, horror sickos. Welcome to Gorgab. I'm creepy Conroy Martin.
And I'm Spoopy Stella Lewis. And if you have a problem with the word spoopy, just let me know so I can put a curse on you.
Yeah, she'll do it too.
There's no empirical data to prove this, but I think most of the people that I have met that enjoy and engage with horror willingly, they seem to be pretty well adjusted, which kind of goes against the caricature, the silhouette of someone's like, oh, you have to be weird. Opposite, I have found them to be well adjusted because I wonder, to your point, if they are purposely engaging with the catharsis, with the trauma, with the issues that the horror presents. And then also a lot of the horror folks that I've met talking about physical media and dead media, they tend to be the people that seem to, whatever the word you want to use, collect, preserve media. They want the Halloween poster. They want the Nick Castle signed knife.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I think it's so fascinating that, we can become really attached to monsters. People love Michael Myers, right? Bed sheets, tattoos, posters. We're bonded to this idea of especially in the specific Halloween movies where we truly don't know his motivation, and that's part of the terror. I think that people are bonding with that idea of the world is full of Michael Myers, of unknowable awfulness, but Laurie Strode and others overcome it, right? And I think that's what people are bonding with on a deep level, even if they don't take the time to intellectualize it. I think that is why, well-adjusted people are like, I'm going to fill my home with knives.
And they go back and, hey, it's October. It's time for me to revisit the Friday the 13th movies. I'm wondering, too, in making dead media, because that is also something about DVDs. DVDs have layers. In making dead media, did you purposely include things that you kind of are rewarded because of repeat viewing?
I really, really tried to. Yeah. Because I really appreciate that in films. I also just love world building. I think that every time that there's any sort of empty canvas that you can put something on that's unique and specific to the world that you're building, I think it just makes it I love it when you feel like you watched a film and maybe you're even like, oh, I got this problem with this plot or that character motivation, but you love it because you feel like you entered this specific world and there's no other world exactly like that film you entered. That's one of my favorite things of I want to go into a vibe. And I think the more that you world build, the more you kind of create the film's unique vibe. And then the more there are just little tiny Easter eggs everywhere of oh, I didn't notice that thing in the corner, it actually connects to this other thing in that corner and all that kind of stuff.
Bringing it back a little bit, when did you first get the idea that you wanted to make a feature-length movie? Was this something that had been knocking around a while that you felt like you needed to tackle, or was there a spark of inspiration that set you down this path?
I did theater and comedy in Minneapolis for a long time, and then I met Bill Corbett of Mystery Science Theater in Riff Tracks, as he lives in Minnesota, and he's also a theater guy. That's his background, and he saw a couple of shows I did and invited me to do some stuff with him, and we went and did a show at the San Francisco Sketch Fest, and it was just I love Minneapolis and St. Paul, but I want to go experience more of the world, and met other people, and it was great. So I was like, I'm going to move to LA and try to do some writing for television and films so that things exist. And I did some pitching for a while and had a couple close calls. Then it got really frustrating that things didn't exist. And I got to a point of I used to produce my own theater shows. It's a lot more expensive to produce a movie, but I know how to produce movies. I know how to produce. I can figure out how to produce a movie. So then I did a couple of shorts to kind of make sure that's what I wanted to do because it's such a commitment. But as soon as I started making shorts in 2022, I was like, as soon as possible, I want to make a feature because shorts are beautiful. They're great. They're awesome ways to share art, but there's not much way to build a financial career stability off of it. So 2022, I started making short films. I'm going to make a feature, as soon as I can. And then once I was in that ballpark, I had been pretty much pitching mostly horror stuff because it just felt right. It's just the stories I wanted to tell. So I knew I wanted to make a horror movie. And then this idea came to me and was this feels like the right idea, and just went with my gut that this is the one.
I was just listening to a new interview with John Carpenter on Billy Corgan's podcast, of all places. And he was talking quite a bit about his early career and how he had total control, starting with Halloween, obviously doing a lot of the independent stuff, and then how that became complicated once he got moved into doing some of the studio work for Universal. Thinking of you as kind of, you've written the script, you produced it, you've directed it, you even have a bit part in Dead Media. You've had total control of this, and it's very much yours. And I was just curious what you found are the positives of having all that control, and what the challenges might have been making Dead Media having total control over your project.
The wearing lots of different hats is a mix of needing to save money. If it is something that is in my wheelhouse and my skill set, I will do that because it will save money, and then I'll be able to pay people to do the things that I truly cannot and do not want to do. And obviously, there are a lot of times where I'd be like, man, I wish some big studio was paying for this, especially some of the not fun things like, it's a challenge to track all of the post-production needs and timelines. And there's nothing sexy or fun about, is this in the right color space? Did everybody put the two-pop in the correct location? Like, there's a lot of that crunchy stuff that's like, normally there's a team of people who do this. That wasn't fun to do, but was necessary, and I learned a lot, and that was great. But part of the wearing a lot of hats is I've done a lot of different things, and it's been a challenge for me because I like doing lots of different things. So part of the reason of doing film was like, I really need to pick something to concentrate on. I picked film because I can do so many different things, and that was so fabulous to be able to write and work with actors, do a little bit of acting myself, do some of the sound design, do some of the music, and like I got to express so many different things, and that was fabulous. It is an interesting challenge to move from total control to the support, the bigger profile of working with the studio, but a lot of my favorite directors like John Carpenter and David Lynch and people like that who are used to like, hey, if that makeup isn't right, I'm going to say, give me the brush and I'm going to make that line go the way I think it should, and that's stuff that you're not allowed to do in a lot of studio things. Like, you can't touch that light, It is a trade-off between the support and the security and all that versus the loss of control.
John Carpenter, thank you very much for being here today.
My pleasure.
When I think of you, I think of the word auteur, which is a word we use in America in the arts, but I don't think we really know what it means.
No, we don't know what it means.
How would you define auteur?
Just somebody in control, and that's a lot of people want to be in control. But when you're a movie director in Hollywood, in the business, you want to maintain control because that's your movie.
Responses you had to one of the comments on one of your YouTube videos. And yes, Joseph, I went that deep on trying to find this info. Yeah, you responded. You said, sound design is fast becoming one of my favorite parts of working on films.
It happens. What are you going to do?
The knife on the scraping on the plate in Deep into Norway, a short horror travelogue. I think this guy's having a lot of fun with this. But man, this is one of those few times where I can write something and I'm giving it to folks to deliver it. And if you give it to the right people and they get it, then hopefully you get some more back. And it's alchemy, and this is amazing. But you never get the camera in the right spot or the lighting in the perfect spot, and you're just seeing all the things that could have been based on your mind's eye. But there is something about the Foley and the soundscape of it all. I've got all the pieces, and it's not perfect. It's good, but man, I actually can control the creaking door or adding footsteps. This is in my wheel well, and with a good pair of headphones and a lot of different sound effects, this I can make almost exactly how I want it to be and have it be additive, maybe even fill in some of the missing gaps of the things that don't work out as well as I want. Is that fair? Is that accurate in how you work? Do you see it that way?
Yeah. I think part of what's so fun about it is it's so beautifully freeing and weird. And I think it's one of the parts of the process that's really close to playing like a kid. And there are lots of well-learned rules to many parts of the filmmaking process, right? Like cinematographers will really watch you on, the 180-degree rule, right? And the gaffer will say that's not conventional lighting and all understandable stuff. People are trained and they want to be professional. And then sometimes when you want to do something kind of a weird way, you have to be like, really, like, trust me. I know all of your professors said to never do this, but trust me, I'll edit it. It'll be great. And I had many of those interactions and they were great. And everybody, worked together and collaborated and it was fantastic. But the sound design really is like, I'm just alone in my 1-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles and like got a hammer and a lemon and a teddy bear. Nobody's watching me. and I'm just going to do some shit. Rules in learning are great, and mastering your craft is great. But when you get too focused on what's the right way to do this, particularly when you're starting out and you're just like, let me watch 1,000 YouTube videos about editing to make sure I don't do it wrong, and everybody will laugh at me because I did it wrong. There's something about sound design with it. Make the noise alone in your sweatpants, however you do. And if it sounds good, you did it right. I think there's something so freeing about that, and fun. And I also just think that because of the way that things are generally done, of like you get to picture lock and then you add the sound, that we can separate how vital the sound is to making everything work. And that it's just like, I'm just so into the idea of it. It's 50% of the film. It's not the stuff you have to add. It's not like, oh, got to put the telephone ring in.
Shit.
Yes?
I told you not to hang up on me.
What do you want?
To talk.
Well, dial someone else, okay?
It's telling the story. It's telling the mood. It's changing things entirely. It's half of your toolkit. The next script I write, I'm so jazzed to just be like thinking about ahead of time. Like, it's half of my toolkit. I get to make weird noises in my apartment, and it's half of my toolkit.
And I think to that point, probably obsessing over what phone ring you're picking, because that's also part of the storytelling.
Listen, asshole!
No, you listen, you little bitch. You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand?
There are a lot of cinematic conventions that are prescribed. The camera doesn't always have to sit in a certain place, but all things being equal, I should kind of tell what's happening. Like the action should be relatively clear, and you can have a Dutch angle and you can be creative, and that's all well and good, but I kind of need to see what's going on. And I wonder if this is where like the one thing is all the things in the way you work. With comedy, it feels like choreography to me. It feels like music. You're writing a song, it just happens to be in the form of a stand-up. And playing with the audience to understand the roller coaster, the frequency, the wavelength. And you're like, ooh, if I do this right, this joke can get maybe a 10% more pop because I knew when to say the next word and how to say it. Horror, man, talk about how that's very much baked in. You know, oh, if I do the jump scare here, but boy, if I have the phone ring, I can take a little bit of the air out of the balloon for the audience that's expecting the jump scare here, but that's actually not the scare. The scare is going to come right after that, you know, when the person picks up the phone and I mess with the camera angle. And I'm wondering if that's kind of a bit of your superpower. The shorts film, the sound design, the writing, it all kind of informs itself.
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, I go back and forth from being frustrated with myself that I didn't start film sooner because I really love it and I want to do it for the rest of my life. And then look at it in the more positive light of I have a lot of experiences and skills that I think have helped me a lot in film, and it's really nice to be able to call on all of them and not keep them separate from each other. Of like, I'm not a super pro musician, but my dad taught me to play drums, and I played in rock bands in high school and college, and I really have a sense of rhythm from that, and I've got a sense of rhythm from comedy that's different, and that really informs the editing. And I actually went to college to get my art and visual degree, drawing and painting, so I have a lot of strong feelings and instincts about things like Dutch angle. Of like, well, if I'm going to have a Dutch angle here, then it's going to have a different effect if I cut to this other shot that has this energy and angle. And it is really fun to just kind of feel like all of these different disciplines, they're just different ways to kind of tap into our humanity and our sense of self and our connection to others, and how others, to your point of an audience, how others are going to feel. What are they thinking in this moment? And yeah, again, not in any way disparaging becoming a master of a specific skill, but I have found so much joy in saying there aren't boundaries to art. You know, in something you learned because you played the clarinet might really inform your cinematography, you know, because art is art, and they might speak to one another in surprising ways.
It also seems like you kind of take joy in the friction. And obviously this is going back to the beaded curtain conversation, but like you'd said earlier, like, yeah, the idea of streaming can feel very disposable because you just kind of watch it, and without any fanfare, marketing, without any context, the person's just watching it. And it sounds like you're trying to create context through the roadshow, like creating a little bit of that communal ritual experience, a little bit of friction in a good way by listening to questions that maybe are elicited by folks after seeing the movie, by maybe giving them a little bit of context behind, your thought process and the making and what influenced you. So there's a way where I think you're trying to kind of be like, hey guys, we can slow it down a little bit, and maybe a bit of a speed bump is a good thing in this case.
Yeah, I think so. I really do think that we have lost an ability and a desire to savor things sometimes. Like again, I'm not against streaming, but it's a part of the diet. Like it'll be awesome when like, yeah, my wife and I want to see this Spielberg movie we've never seen, and it's on 3 of our streaming services. And that's what we're going to watch tonight. Great. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think when it's our only thing, I mean, everybody makes the joke about like streaming services hate credits. They never want you to know who the gaffer was, right? Because they're always trying to get you to just rate this one and move on to the next thing. And I think that starts to take a toll on our psychology of the beautiful film experience is sinking into a film and getting on its vibe, its tempo, right? And then when it's over, giving yourself time to digest it like it's a nice meal. Going out to a film, to an event is, maybe sort of friction to move on to the next one and ask people to, pump the brakes and slow down and savor.
Where can we direct people that are interested in seeing Dead Media on the road?
Yeah, so the best place to go is antennareleasing.com/films/dead media. We're starting with the film's Los Angeles premiere on July 18th, 7 p.m. at Brain Dead Studios. And every showing is going to have a Q&A. That one's going to have a Q&A moderated by the horror filmmaker Joe Lynch, and several of the actors will be in attendance, including the great James Urbaniak. And then we're going to some stops in the Pacific Northwest, a bunch of stops in the East Coast and the Midwest, and then ending in Minneapolis at the Heights Theater on August 18th. And every showing will not just be a screening. There'll be an intro, there'll be Q&A, there'll be some fun bells and whistles, so it feels like an event.
It is gonna take you back to the old days, and once you get there, you might never come back.